I'm Megan. Standing in the middle of my parents' dining room, I'm surrounded by chaos. My mother is sobbing uncontrollably, my father is red-faced and arguing with the police officers, and my sister, Lily, is crying while yelling at me about family loyalty. 2 police officers are handcuffing my brother, Ryan, who looks pale and defeated. It all started on a seemingly normal Tuesday. I was in a meeting with the city's Urban Development Committee, discussing new infrastructure projects. My phone, set to silent, lit up during a break in the presentation. I glanced down and saw a text from Ryan. It read, "Sold your useless building for $200,000. The family needs the money more than you." I read it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. Ryan is my older brother. He graduated from a top-tier law school and opened his own law firm 2 years ago with my father's financial support. My sister, Lily, is married to a wealthy tech entrepreneur. They all live in large, luxurious houses, drive expensive cars, and are members of exclusive country clubs. To them, I'm just Megan, the 32-year-old who works as a property manager for someone else's buildings and lives in a small apartment. What they don't know is that I've been quietly building my own real estate empire. I own 17 properties across the city. The building Ryan just sold was one I bought 8 years ago when the neighborhood was on the rise. According to the latest appraisal, it's worth $8,500,000. The ground floor houses 3 thriving businesses, the second to 4th floors are premium office spaces, and the top 2 floors are luxury apartments. It generates a monthly rental income of $142,000. After the meeting ended at 4:15 p.m. I checked my phone again. Ryan had sent 3 more texts. Already deposited the check. Don't be mad. The family business needs capital. You should thank me for getting $200,000 for that dump. The so-called family business is Ryan's law firm. It's been losing money because he spends more on fancy office furniture and high-end office space than on building a client base. I didn't reply to his texts. Instead, I called my attorney, Jake. Jake answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" I told him, "My brother just sold one of my properties without my consent. The Elmwood building downtown." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then he said, "The $8.5 million property? Your brother sold it? He claims he got $200,000 for it." Jake paused, and I could hear papers rustling. "That's fraud, grand theft, possibly multiple felonies depending on how he executed the sale." I knew that. I told Jake, "I'm not calling to ask what to do. I'm calling to tell you to start the process. Contact the buyer, file the necessary paperwork, and report the fraudulent sale. I want this handled by the book." Jake said he'd need to involve the police and probably the DA's office given the amount involved. After hanging up, I drove to my parents' house. It was family dinner night, a weekly event where we all gather to eat my mother's home-cooked meals and pretend we're a close-knit family. When I arrived at 6:30 p.m. Ryan's Mercedes was already in the driveway, parked at an angle that took up 2 parking spaces. Lily's husband's Porsche was also there, shiny and spotless. Inside, the house smelled of roasting chicken. My mother was in the kitchen, wearing an apron that said Kitchen Queen in curly letters. My father was sitting in his armchair, watching the stock market news even though his understanding of finance was limited to complaining about taxes. My mother called out when she saw me, "You're here. Ryan just told us the most wonderful news." I set my purse on the entry table. She said, "About selling that old building of yours for $200,000. Can you imagine? For that old thing. Ryan said you've been trying to sell it for years. Isn't it wonderful that he finally found a buyer?" I hadn't been trying to sell it. I'd never even mentioned selling it, and the building wasn't listed. I asked, "Where is Ryan?" She replied, "In the dining room with your father and Lily. They're celebrating." I walked into the dining room. Ryan was sitting at the head of the table, the seat usually reserved for my father, with a glass of what looked like expensive whiskey. Lily and her husband, Ethan, were sitting across from each other, also holding glasses. Ryan stood up, grinning widely. He looked like he'd already had a few drinks. There she is. I was just telling everyone about the sale. You don't have to thank me. That's what family does, right? Look out for each other. When I heard Smith Properties was looking for something in that area, I immediately thought of your building. Figured I'd help you out. Lily leaned forward. It's really generous of Ryan, Megan. That building has been sitting there doing nothing for years. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Has it? I asked. Lily exchanged a glance with Ryan. I mean, you've been managing it, but it's not like you own it or anything. You were just taking care of it for whoever owns it, right? I said softly, right. Ethan, who works in tech and always seems out of place at these family dinners, spoke up. Actually, I thought Megan mentioned she. Ryan interrupted, the important thing is that I got you a great deal. Smith Properties wanted to low-ball at $150,000, but I negotiated up to $200,000. You're welcome. My father walked in with his own glass of whiskey. That's my Ryan. Always looking out for his little sister. That's the lawyer in him. A natural negotiator. My mother repeated, $200,000. Megan, sweetie, what are you going to do with all that money? You could finally buy a real house. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Actually, I already deposited the check. The room went quiet. Lily asked, you what? Ryan shrugged. Megan knows we needed capital. The firm is in a crucial growth phase. Once we're profitable, I'll pay her back. With interest. My father nodded approvingly. Smart thinking. Keep it in the family. My mother said slowly, Ryan, you should have asked Megan first. Ryan replied, why? The money's going to help the family business. Megan's part of the family. It all works out. He turned to me, you understand, right? It's an investment. In 6 months, maybe a year, the firm will be booming. You'll get your money back doubled. I looked at Ryan. At 36, he had an air of overconfidence that came from never facing real failure. My father had paid for his college, law school, and gave him $500,000 to start his firm. Every setback in his life had been cushioned by family money. I said calmly, Ryan, how exactly did you sell my building? He replied, I told you, Smith Properties. I pressed, no. How did you execute the sale? The paperwork, the deed transfer. He waved his hand dismissively. Details. I'm a lawyer, Megan. I know how to handle real estate transactions. I asked, so, you forged my signature? The room went very still. Ryan said, I didn't forge anything. I had power of attorney. I said, no, you don't. He claimed, Dad gave me power of attorney for family properties years ago. I turned to my father. Did you? My father looked uncomfortable. Well, yes, but that was for my properties, not. I said, the building is mine, not Dad's. My name is on the deed, I pay the property taxes, and I have the tenants. Ryan laughed, but it sounded forced. Come on, Megan. Don't be dramatic. You don't own that building. You manage it. There's a difference. I said, I purchased it in June 2017 for $2,800,000. Cash sale. No mortgage. Would you like to see the deed? Lily gasped. $2. $8 million? Megan, where would you get $2? $8 million? That's impossible, Ryan said. You were making what, $30,000 a year as a property manager? I said, I made $50,000 working for someone else. Then I started working for myself. My mother sat down heavily. Megan, sweetie, are you feeling okay? Maybe we should. I continued, I own 17 properties in this city. The Elmwood building downtown that Ryan just fraudulently sold is worth $8,500,000 according to the last assessment. It generates $142,000 in monthly rental income. I haven't had a traditional job in 5 years because I don't need one. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Ryan laughed again. That's ridiculous. If you own properties worth millions, we'd know about it. I said, would you? You drive a Mercedes. I drive a paid-off Honda that gets good gas mileage. You live in a mansion. I live in a 2,500 square foot penthouse that I own, mortgage-free. Just then, my phone rang. It was Jake. I excused myself and answered as I walked into the kitchen. Jake said, Megan, we have a problem. Or rather, your brother does. The sale went through a title company called Fast Title Solutions. They specialize in, let's call them, questionable transactions. I asked, how questionable? He said, the kind that don't verify ownership too carefully. But here's the thing, they did verify. Your brother presented what appeared to be a legitimate power of attorney document and a copy of the deed. I said, he forged them. Almost certainly. Jake said the title company was cooperating. They were mortified because this was going to cost them their license. They claimed Ryan presented very convincing documentation. I asked about the buyer. Jake said Smith Properties was legitimate. They thought they were buying from the owner's representative and were threatening to sue everyone involved. The $200,000 had already been deposited into Ryan's law firm account that morning. Jake said he'd frozen the account, but Ryan's firm account showed a balance of negative $50,000 before the deposit. He was already insolvent. I closed my eyes. I knew he was desperate. Jake said he'd filed a police report. Given the amount involved, this was a felony, multiple felonies actually, fraud, forgery, grand theft. The DA's office would likely want to prosecute. I told Jake I was sure I wanted to proceed. I hung up and returned to the dining room. Everyone was frozen in uncomfortable silence. I said, that was my attorney. He's filed a police report. The DA's office will likely file charges tomorrow. Fraud, forgery, and grand theft. Ryan stood up abruptly. You're bluffing. I said, the title company is cooperating. They've provided copies of all the forged documents. The buyer is threatening to sue everyone involved. Lily said, Megan, you're not serious. He's your brother. I replied, who just committed multiple felonies. My father's face went red. Now, wait just a minute. This family doesn't air its dirty laundry in public. We handle things privately. I said, he stole $8,500,000 worth of property. My father shouted, he borrowed against an asset. That's not stealing. I said, it is when the asset isn't his to borrow against. My mother was crying now. Megan, please. Think about the family. Think about Ryan's career. A criminal record would destroy him. I said, he should have thought about that before forging legal documents. Ryan's confidence had vanished. He looked pale. You actually own that building? I said, I actually own that building. But how? You don't have that kind of money. You can't. Just then, Ryan's phone rang. The screen showed an unknown number with a local area code. I said, answer it. Ryan picked up the phone with shaking hands. Hello. I couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but I watched Ryan's face turn even paler. He said, yes, this is Ryan Miller. Who is? What? No, I was told she's my sister, I thought. What do you mean consent? The voice on the other end grew louder. Ryan said, I agree. The city's most valuable. No, that can't be right. It's just an old building. $8,500,000. He sat down hard. But I only. $200,000, she said. He lowered the phone slowly. That was Smith Properties' attorney. They're suing me for fraudulent representation and want their $200,000 back immediately, plus damages. They say the building is worth. He couldn't finish the sentence. I said, $8,500,000. Lily's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. Oh my God. Ryan, you're trending on Twitter. She held up her phone. I could see the headline from across the table. Local attorney sells $8.5 million building without owner's consent. Ethan leaned over to look. That's the Smith Properties corporate account. They have 250,000 followers. Lily kept scrolling. Real Estate Weekly picked it up. So did the Legal Times. They're calling it the biggest property fraud case of the year. My father stood up. This is fixable. We'll hire a better lawyer. We'll. I asked, with what money? Ryan's firm is $50,000 in debt even with the stolen $200,000. You refinanced this house to give him startup capital. Lily, didn't you and Ethan co-sign his office lease? Lily went pale. How do you know that? I said, I make it my business to know things about my investments. Ryan shouted, we're not your investments. We're your family. I said, then why did you steal from me? Ryan said, I didn't steal. I was helping. The firm just needs more time to. I said, the firm is failing. It's been failing since month 4. You have 3 clients, Ryan. Your monthly expenses are $50,000. Your monthly revenue is $7,000. You were never going to make it. My mother was sobbing openly. Megan, how can you be so cruel? He's your brother. He made a mistake. I said, he committed multiple felonies. My phone rang again. It was Jake. He said, the police are on their way to your brother's house. They'll probably arrive within the hour. I wanted to give you a heads up. I thanked him. He also said the Bar Association had gotten wind of this and was opening an ethics investigation. Even if Ryan wasn't convicted criminally, he'd almost certainly lose his license. I looked at Ryan. He'd heard enough to understand. His entire body was shaking. Megan, please. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll sell my car, the furniture, whatever it takes. Just don't let them arrest me. I said, you can't fix this, Ryan. You don't have $8,500,000. You don't even have $200,000 anymore. The bank froze your account. Lily stood up. This is insane. Megan, you're destroying him over money. It's just money. I said, it's not about the money. It's about the fact that you all assumed I had nothing worth stealing. My father tried again. Megan, please. Be reasonable. We can work this out as a family. We don't need lawyers and police. We just need to sit down and... I stood up. Fine. Here's my offer. Ryan returns the $200,000 immediately. All of it. Then he pays fair market value for the building, $8,500,000, or the sale is voided and he faces criminal charges for fraud and theft. Ryan shouted, that's impossible. I don't have $8,500,000. I said, then you shouldn't have sold my building. My mother pleaded, Megan, you can't send your brother to prison. I said, I'm not sending him anywhere. His choices did that. Just then, the doorbell rang. We all froze. My father went to answer it. I heard low voices, then my father saying, "There must be some mistake." 2 police officers appeared in the dining room doorway. "Ryan Miller?" the taller one asked. Ryan stood slowly. "Yes." The officer said, "Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest for fraud, forgery, and grand theft. You have the right to remain silent." My mother screamed. Lily started crying. My father tried to argue with the officers, saying this was all a misunderstanding, a family matter that could be resolved without involving the police. Ryan just stood there as they handcuffed him. He looked at me as they led him toward the door. "I'm your brother," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "That's what makes this so disappointing." After they left, the house descended into chaos. My mother collapsed into a chair, wailing about her son. My father started making phone calls to find a criminal attorney who could get Ryan out on bail. Lily alternated between crying and yelling at me about family loyalty. Ethan pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Megan, I know this is complicated, but I need to ask. Lily and I co-signed Ryan's office lease. If his firm goes under, you'll be responsible for the rent." I said, "Yes." He said, "That's $9,000 a month for the next 3 years." I said, "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "We can't afford that." "Not